So, welcome to the next edition of the Punk CX podcast. With me today, it's a bit of an unusual one. It's a twofer. I have two people that are interviewing at the same time, and those two people are Mark Smith and Ray Gerber. So, if you've been around the customer sort of space for a while, you've probably heard their names. But right now, they are founders at the Institute for Journey Management. Welcome, Mark. Welcome, Ray. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having us, Adrian.
You're very welcome.
Thanks, Adrian. Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. Now, for the benefit of our listeners and readers and people that read the highlights and things, I mean, I wonder if I can ask you just to give us a bit of a thumbnail sketch of you and your journey kind of like so far, pardon the pun, obviously. I'll start with kind of you, Mark. Can you fill in the blanks, give us a bit of an idea of who Mark Smith is and how did you get to this kind of point?
So I guess I've been in the customer technology space for about 30 years, maybe a little over 30 years. Originally very analytics focused, understanding the behavior of customers in an analytics sense. That business then was acquired by an interaction management company, Portrait Software, back about 15 years ago. One of the very early players in sort of aligning experiences for customers on different channels. That space then kind of became the journey space, this mix of analytics and interaction management. I founded a company called Kitewheel back in 2013, essentially doing those same things, but now on the cloud as a SaaS solution. That kind of coincided with the emergence of this new technology marketplace, the journey orchestration space. And it's kind of then that I became aware of Ray, let's just say. And
you were competitors at one point, right?
Yeah, maybe we were.
Fierce competitors.
Yeah.
We'll revisit that one, shall we?
Yes. And so, Kitewheel, last dozen years or so, went through an acquisition in 2021, became part of CSG, but essentially was always one of the top-rated journey orchestration players. So I've been in that journey space for a dozen years or so, from the technology side primarily.
Perfect. Ray?
Yeah, so I, hopefully try and introduce a little bit of a humor, but, it doesn't always work. The first time I ever spoke on expert systems in South Africa, there was 2,000 people in the audience, and I started with a joke and nobody laughed. So I'll try again. So, people ask me where I'm from, and I always say I'm from the deep south. And obviously in America, that means the southern part. And they're like, oh, where? I said, South Africa. And then they laugh. And they were like, how are you going to remember your name? I said, well, everybody loves Raymond, the show. And then you have Gerber Baby Foods. So everybody loves Raymond Gerber Baby Foods. So that's me in a package. But, I came from South Africa, moved to America in 96, was a software engineer, transitioned into the ERP space. From the ERP space, transitioned into CRM. From CRM, then transitioned into CX/journey management, where I wouldn't say I was a co-founder. Glenn Manchester was the founder of Thunderhead, which was a CCM company, which was sold in 2016. And then we transitioned to build a journey management solution, which competed with the Kitewheels of the world. We were sold to Medallia in 2022. I then joined Qualtrics as a distinguished XM scientist, or as my wife calls me, an extinguished XM scientist. And in February this year, Mark and I got together with Joanna introducing us, like, let's do this. And it's been a very exciting time. We're still in the early stages of the Institute, but it was great to get to know Mark, as a person and as a friend versus as a competitor. And I think we work very well together. We know our place within the Institute, and I think we've found a way to invigorate the founders that joined. So excited to be joining today, Adrian.
Excellent. Now, before we get into sort of the Institute for Journey Management, I thought it might be interesting or useful to just before we get started, just like talk about customer journeys. I mean, I'll come back to you, kind of, Ray, on this one first. It's like, can you explain to me what you mean by customer journeys, just so we're clear?
It's interesting when I was at Thunderhead and we built the first version of the solution, it was focused on, next phase action decision, because that was my background at Pegasystems. And we realized we needed the visualization part of it. And I was like, how do I do this? And I spoke to somebody and I was talking about the app called Waze. I'm sure you use Waze. And there's this interesting story where a guy in London took 500 cell phones and put it into a container in London. And they were all on Google Maps, actually very similar. And the way they tracked, because all the phones were open in Google Maps, it showed that there was a tremendous traffic jam. Because as this guy was moving, there was 500 phones that was moving very, very, very slowly.
Right.
And so when I thought about how do I create journalytics and insights, I was thinking about Waze, how it tracks people, how it looks for friction, but also how it suggests off-ramps to avoid friction in the future and traffic jams in the future. So I kind of think that's kind of where, when I think about journey management technologies and specifically journalytics and journey orchestration, how I can equate customer journeys to the journey we take in vehicles and the tools we use through a navigation system to be able to help us avoid friction, go on detours if needed, find shorter paths, find things that are valuable on the road as you go. So that's kind of the way I talk about journey management. I think is a way to visually explain the value and concept of journey management. So,
it's fascinating because it's also, I wanted to also ask, because the other thing that it feels like is a popular and possibly misconception within this sort of like space is that people kind of come to the point where they're like, oh, we can control the customer kind of journey. And you're like going, have you never met a human being? And Mark, I know that you and I have talked about this in the past before. It's like, so this almost like to try and lift the lid on that as well. So this is not like a prescriptive thing. This is more of an organic thing that responds to behavior.
That's right. Yeah, the key thing about customer journeys is they're the customer's journey, right? And the customers do what they want to do. They've got their goals in mind. They've got their destination, and there's lots of different ways they can get there. All right. And I think journeys can be misunderstood when the business thinks they own it, and the business is trying to define it, and they're really driving, and they're trying to drive this customer where they want to go. And if that doesn't line up with where the customer wants to go, you're going to have a problem, right? And so the key thing for me about customer journeys is it's the customer's journey. That's the nature of the modern world. We all have all of these options available to us. We can buy things 10 different ways, 20 different ways from lots of different providers. And we all go through a process of thinking what we might want to buy or what kind of service we're looking for and what kind of help we need. And you go your own way to get there. And the businesses that are really successful are the ones that get that and organize themselves around those customers as best as they can, to kind of be more thinking about helping the customer along that journey, rather than, as you say, prescriptively defining and saying, no, this is the way it works, and pushing things at the customer.
And do you think that's the thing that people get most wrong with approaching this? Because it feels like some people can't get beyond the process way of viewing the world. This is how we're going to do things, like businesses. These are process, and this is this is how we exact control over it. But then they almost like have to impose that on an external kind of world. And do you think that's what that?
Well, it's one of the things that makes it difficult, because businesses do need control, and they need to set themselves up and to operate certain ways and to have rules about how they operate. And customer journeys are difficult because it becomes this connection point between those two sides. How do you still have an efficiently operating business whilst aligning properly with the customer and what they're looking for? That's a complex thing, which is why you need kind of complex solutions to get there. The value is huge.
Yeah.
When you get that alignment, almost like cogs in a gearbox, when you get that alignment between you operating efficiently, but also meeting that customer interest, the value can be massive. And Ray and I have both seen, that's one of the reasons we're working together on this institute, actually, is we've seen so many great examples of incredible value being delivered when you get this customer journey stuff to work right. Just because it's difficult, not enough companies are doing it, and getting that value.
So maybe can I ask, because you talked about the opportunity, and Ray, you talked about complex kind of like systems and, getting it right. I mean, and then Mark, you also then talked about examples. I mean, Ray, do you have an example of like, just to illustrate what the opportunity is for some firms?
Yeah, I mean, I think very practical, just to add on to what Mark said is we had a play on words at Thunderhead/Medallia. It is not a managed customer journey. It's the customer managed journey. Okay.
Right.
Well, so when you take it the latter, you take traditional marketing and automation systems with campaign management. It's the managed customer journey. We are predicting as marketing specialist what we think this sequence of steps are that the customer wants to go through, and we base it on an audience of 10,000 people. But we don't have the ability to personalize it. So when we actually became OEM partners with Salesforce, they embedded the journey management solution inside the marketing automation solution to be able to, at each step in the campaign, to be able to determine for this specific person, based on interaction context, based on behavioral context, based on feedback, is this still the right thing to do for the customer? So I think always for me, that's kind of a very, very good example in terms of taking the traditional controlled environment where people are, companies are forcing customers through a process or a journey or a campaign, but being able to use the concepts of journey context, journey insights, and journey orchestration to be able to say, let's flexibility. We still have to have some level of control, like Mark said. You can't just have an open-ended system where you have 10,000 people and every one of those people will have a different journey. It just doesn't happen. And companies, comprehend that. So it's kind of this combination of taking traditional concepts and modern concepts and embedding them and fusing them together to find more detailed engagement with customers that are more relevant, what I would call in line with their need, wants, and intent.
And you guys have been working on this for a number of years, and now in recent years, we've seen the explosion of generative AI and now agentic AI. But does some of those new kind of things fundamentally change what you were talking about, or how does it make it easier? Does it make it, how does it impact it? I mean, Ray, what do you think?
I mean, I think when we talk about personalization, I always talk about descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive as analytics. Those are the four phases of it. And generative AI is really, really good at describing what's happened. We know that. Diagnosing what's happened, and possibly prescribing what things you could do, but nothing replaces the traditional predictive elements of machine learning, where you can ensure that the same next best offer or next best orchestration, is given to the same group of people in the same way, because there's bias, there is regulations that require you to be able to show how certain decisions were made. So I think that, yes, generative AI is becoming mainstream. It's changing the interfaces of how employees expect to engage with systems. When I look at some of the new VOC systems that are coming out, a company called Interpret, their whole interface is a prompt. There's no UIs, stuff like that. And I think very much like our lives are changing, as consumers, I think employees' lives will change. You say we need simpler interfaces, but also the ability to just be able to take individual customer context plus the orchestration context, and then use Gen AI to generate very, very personalized conversations that are fit at the individual level without somebody having to craft to that and think, okay, here are 7 different types of messages. Now we can have thousands, and those are very, very relevant based on an individual customer. So I think the one-to-one marketing context is becoming a potential. It's not there yet, but it's becoming a potential. So.
Mark, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would. And kind of building on what Ray just said there about we're not there yet, right? There's huge opportunity to automate coming out of AI systems, all the different kinds. And building on one of the things Ray said, just predictive AI, as it would be called today, just, on being able to identify what is the right thing for a customer That's actually been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Again, too few companies are really using it, certainly in the journey context. Really empowering your journeys with that prediction of what the customer's really interested in. Huge value there. Not many companies set themselves up to do it. And that's kind of repeats itself all over. There's a great match between AI and customer journeys in that the customer journey approach sets you a framework for how to interact with customers. If you then feed intelligence into that framework and you feed automation into that framework, things go very well.
Yeah.
If you try and feed automation into something that isn't actually set up right, and you haven't got a framework of a journey to interact with the customer in the right way, you risk automating the wrong thing. You risk automating all those bad things you currently do that really annoy the customer. Well, let's do more of those and let's do them faster. No, right? You got to do the right thing more often. Now, the other thing I'd add is the agentic AI is an interesting area as well. And there's clearly a future there where we all use more agents to interact with businesses. Again, it's really key to have this right framework in place, a journey management framework, to work with that agentic technology that will speed up and automate all of those interactions between a business from both sides, potentially, right? Where you've got agents working with each other. You better set up a framework for how they're going to operate if you want to get the right results out of it. And so there's great alignment between all these new AI technology and journey management. One isn't just going to replace the other. I think it's a real sort of synergy that's going to be delivering business value.
Correct me if I'm wrong as well, is it feels like, Ray, you talked about predictive analytics and kind of machine learning, and that's kind of what the sort of foundations that Next-Best Decisioning was kind of founded on. And then you add in kind of generative AI, and then now the agentic AI dimensions to that. And it feels like, correct me if I'm wrong, that the journey management field was more around the sort of that almost like the digital only sort of like space. But with the advent of these new sort of technologies, when you can do things in real time, you could potentially add in live channels into that kind of too, and then it just gets richer. It's like across the piece, but also kind of pre-sale, post-sale, and all the bits in between. And if you, as Mark said, if you get it right, then this is incredibly rich intelligence that can be infused across that whole conversation that you're having with customers. Does that make sense?
I did a podcast about 4 years ago on the concept of autonomous orchestration.
Yeah.
I equated that to concept of Teslas with autonomous vehicles in terms of how we can use the signals to continue to proactively understand, how's the guy driving next to you? Is he going slower? Is he going faster? Is he weaving off? And integrating that with the GPS in terms of proactively saying, well, you're going to have to turn right a mile from here, start getting into the right lane. And so it's just exciting to see how all of these things coming together. I think coming back to the AI thing, I still think for the next 2 to 3 years, most value of AI will be internal to organizations from an employee perspective. I think if we just look at the work I did at Qualtrics around building journey atlases, we'll be making journey atlases available by the Institute. Journey topic models, where I took a website of a bank and it went through a whole website and it built a hierarchical topic model for me that was just amazing. So when you think of the productivity improvements that provides within organizations and widening the knowledge and skills of the people that work, I think it's amazing. I think we still, have to get there, but maybe 20% of the value, if that much, lands at the end consumer. But I think that then that will mature, that percentage will gradually increase over time.
Yeah. No, perfect. I mean, I think there's a long way to go, and let's put it this way: there's a lot of chairs that need to be moved around in many organizations to get ready for this, and that will take kind of like some time. But now that we've kind of like talked a little bit about journey management, I mean, let's talk about the institute thing that you're founding. I mean, so how did it start? I mean, what was the kind of kernel? What was the thing like? Oh, there's the thing we need to solve for that. What was the spark that started with that as that, and I'm going to ask Mark kind of to have first go at that one, and then see if kind of Ray kind of corrects you.
Well, it's good that you asked me, because then it gives me an opportunity to say that it was kind of Ray's idea.
Aha!
And so, but it all came out of, we got together, and Ray kind of mentioned this earlier. We, for 10 plus years, we both worked with this Joanna de Quintanilla, the forest analyst, who's really sort of created the journey orchestration and journey management space with her work. And we both known her very well, and she rated our companies very, very closely together for years, always competing for kind of top spot. And she got us together. She said, "You two guys, you got to get to know each other, because I think you'll get on well." And so we got together 6-8 months ago and had a first call, and found out we kind of agreed on so much stuff around customer journeys, but most importantly, we had a shared kind of frustration that this market wasn't taking off more. We've both seen the value that can get delivered by doing journey management, right? But 1-2% of companies are actually going there, and so we were sort of bouncing ideas around. I said, why would that be? Why is it that, despite all of the evidence for the value that can be delivered, so few are doing it? And Ray said, maybe we should create an institute, a body that sort of helps the whole industry by sharing these stories of value so everyone knows it, by providing education of how to get there. And if you think of the journey space, there's nothing in the journey space that's kind of dedicated to the industry.
Yeah.
Unlike lots of other industries where there are institutes and professional associations and so on, no one had ever done it in the journey space. So I'll say that. Ray will now say what was the little spark in there that gave him the idea of the institute.
I think to latch on to what Mark said, I think even a stronger word, it's a disappointment.
Right.
We worked our butts off, and when you look at how successful we were compared to the VOC vendors that had much simpler solutions, it's like, what's going on? I think, and then when you start thinking about why that is, I think there's the combination of complexity of the problem we're trying to solve. It's not doing a survey and getting a response to one survey and one touch point. It's really truly omni-channel journey behaviors, trying to understand that across all channels. But then, I think where the institute role initially was thought about is these silos created by vendors. You have journey mapping vendors. Then you have the Mark and I, there were journey analytics and journey orchestration vendors. And there was some like, okay, but, journey orchestration is really next phase action, and then you had the market automation companies like Adobe that's saying we have journeys, and you have Salesforce said that we are journeys, but they're really campaigns. And then you have, VOC vendors that we're talking about and you talk about Pega systems that said their case management system was a journey system. So it was just a lot of confusion. And I think we were very fortunate to be able to get an audience in the founders of the institute. They do the Semanticas, the Incubas, the Alterians, and all of those that came together and saying, we agree. And it's interesting, the first meeting they had in Amsterdam in March, was it March? Something like that. I thought it's going to be a technical meeting because I said we need to find ways to create a mechanism where these solutions can more easily integrate with each other. Export a journey map into a journey solution, an activation system, et cetera, very quickly within the first 2 hours. No, we need to find a way to promote the industry, to take confusion out of the terms that are being used. And I think that's where we are today.
So does that mean it's about claiming or owning the narrative in many ways? Is that right? Because it feels like that the technology capability is there, but actually you need to educate people and equip people with the right knowledge. Almost going back to kind of like where we started, is like, this is what journey management is. This is the possibility. This is like, it's not a process. You don't control it, but there's a different way of thinking about it. And you have some semblance of control, but it's actually about the customer. And is it Does it feel like that's the sort of thing that you're aiming at leaders and practitioners to try and expand their mind, as it were?
Certainly some of it is that trying to set standards and definitions for these commonly used terms, because the space is somewhat fragmented, as Ray said, with lots of different players. There's a whole set of core journey solution providers. Even in there's different types, from mapping all the way through to optimization. But then there's a set of players in the broader ecosystem around there that either connect to journeys or talk about journeys. And every one of them has a sort of slightly different definition of what a customer journey is or what customer analytics might be, and let alone the technical standards of how they would work together and integrate. Just even the words they use causes confusion. Causes confusion, and one of my favorite sayings: a confused customer never buys anything. Right. And that definitely happens at senior levels in organizations when they hear three different definitions of what a customer journey is. They're not going to buy a customer journey solution because they're not quite so sure. So definitely, level one for us is setting some standards and definitions of what these things are that are industry-wide and independent of the vendors.
Okay.
But I would say that's just level one.
And maybe, Andrew, to add what you asked earlier around, and I talked about the customer managed journey versus the managed customer journey. We even talked about it. Is journey management the right term?
Right.
Like customer experience management, and I would like to say an alternate term, it will not stick. If it's a journey enablement ecosystem, because firstly, it's not a single solution. It is a set of solutions that all work together to enable journeys for customers. I think that's, for me, something interesting for us to drive over time. I think the other thing that we're struggling with is value. And one of the big things that Mark is driving is there's not enough proof that journey management as a philosophy and as a practice has tangible value. Very similar to what the CX space is struggling with.
Yeah.
There's some really good books out recently on proving the value of CX. And I think that a big role for us in the Institute will be to be able to prove and have tangible proof of the value to customers and to brands by adopting the philosophies, practices, and concepts of journey management.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say it feels like also that there's, to what you were saying, kind of like Ray, it's like I have this thing where, every now and again somebody goes, if I'm speaking to somebody, they introduce me and they go like, Adrian Swinsko, he's a customer experience expert. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I think, because, and people might go, oh, you're being sort of, that's all semantics or being pedantic, or I'm like going, yeah, but here's the fundamental philosophical point. It's like, how can you be an expert in somebody else's experience? I mean, you can facilitate, create the conditions that allow somebody to have the experience that they can, but you have two people that come at something and have had very, very different days or very, very, very different experiences and go through the same process, and how they view it is going to be very different.
And that's why I like to talk about experience enablement.
Right. No, I think that's fine, because you're this, and that's why when I get to the point where I sometimes say, slightly heretically, going like, I wish the whole customer experience space would go away. Because actually, if you think about it, you can't do somebody else's experience if you agree with my kind of point. But what you can do is you can work really hard to serve or be in service to them to facilitate or enable that they have a positive experience with you. But there's no guarantee in any of that.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's the classic deliver an experience.
Yeah.
You can't deliver an experience. Right? You deliver a lot of things, and maybe they create a good experience.
Indeed. And I think that's you got to work hard and use kind of insights and kind of different, all the all the tools that are at your behest to try and create the conditions that was going to create the greatest likelihood that somebody's going to have a positive experience. And that's about it.
And one of the things that makes it so hard, Adrian, is it's a long-term game.
Yeah.
It's a long-term game to get it really right. And there's lots of evidence that investment in customer centricity delivers huge returns for businesses, but it delivers those returns over a fairly long time period. And that's a hard thing for so many businesses.
Yeah.
So many businesses are driven by, and everybody's incented by, very short-term wins and short-term goals. And that's one of the key things, which is why our sort of first sort of outreach is to business leaders,
Right.
to educate them on the things that they can do that invest in the long term. Now, immediately, it's a certain kind of business leader you're looking for there, who really is trying to shape their business to be different in 5 years' time. To, and all the evidence is, if you do these things right, you're going to double the growth rate of your competition if you can take that long-term view and start putting in place the processes that build around the customer, exactly as you've been describing.
And maybe just add to that, obviously, because I was at Medallia, where they acquired Thunred, and we don't see any progress. I was at Qualtrics, and they acquired UserMind, and we don't see any progress. And I think that I come back to the concept of journey management is hard. And when you try and sell journey management as a philosophy that's a cross-organizational practice into a CX team that are generally underfunded and has 1 or 2 people in the team, it is deemed for failure. And I think that's one of the things where Mark and I, with working with the founders, will make sure, if we can prove the value and show the brands truly got value from adopting the practices, but it needed investment more than just technology. It's people, it's processes. I think that's something that I think our pursuit is over the next 2 years, to show organizations you have to invest to get value. You can't just buy technology. It is doomed to fail. So
yeah. And a little bit, Adrian, to your point about you wish customer experience wasn't there. I often find myself wishing the customer experience department wasn't there.
Well, yeah.
Right? Because they're so often not set up to be this across the business solution, or have across the business responsibility to make these kind of big changes. They've got a too narrow a view, because the customer experience touches everywhere in the business, and either you've got the whole business on board working together to do that. You're not going to solve it down in the CX department, where the focus is on metrics and surveys and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And the CX team was another silo created.
Yes.
Right.
as if we don't have enough silos. So when Mark and I working on content for the website, we really focused on this concept of collaborative pods. We want to make sure that they're different pods with different responsibilities, but they're cross-functional and cross-departmental in nature.
So I know that the Institute is just recently launched, and this podcast is part of the effort to sort of like tell the story and to explain its reason for being and what its plans are. And we'll get to the plans sort of like next, and also some of the founding members. But like, give me an idea of, who are you looking for? Who's the people that you would like to say, these are the folks? I mean, you talk to the different types of leaders, Mark. I mean, who are you pitching at? Is this leaders, practitioners, both? And if they come to join up and stuff, what should they expect, or can they expect?
Well, so 2 primary audiences: the business leader, so C-level senior leaders who have got business responsibility, own a P&L. And for that group, we're fundamentally providing education around how journey management helps them deliver those business objectives and those business goals, whether it be growth in revenue, growth in profit. Journey management can help you get there, and we're providing that education to do that. One of the first things they say to us, those business leaders, is, can you also train my team?
Okay.
I need my team to know all this stuff. And so our second audience is the practitioner, the journey managers, the journey analysts, the journey designers, the customer researchers that create the team to deliver for that leader. And so we have a whole range of education for that practitioner community as well. And the education is literally training courses to material for them to read and examinations and tests to pass to get certificates of knowledge. But for the executives, it's value case studies, the stuff Dre was talking about earlier.
Right.
So we as the Institute are kind of validating these case study examples to go with all that high level research from Bain and McKinsey and Harvard Business School that says focusing on the customer delivers value. Here's real examples of real companies doing it.
Yeah.
So that ultimately there'll be a benchmarking capability there that says in your industry for this kind of journey, this is the value you should deliver. Here's a set of ROI tools and business case building tools to do that. Here's a set of tools to help you then structure your organization and build a team to deliver it. All of that kind of executive education is a key part of what the Institute's here to do.
So I'm going to put in a little bit of a promotion for my books here. I released 2 books the last couple of weeks around customer obsession. They'll be available via the Institute's website. But my dedication to the first one, to answer your question, Adrian, is the dedication for everyone who believes that customer journeys are more than processes. They are the language of connection, trust, and true customer obsession. And then the second one, dedication, is for those who turn connection into action, who weave journeys into the fabric of their organizations, uniting people, processes, and purpose to make customer obsession real. And I think maybe those two, when you combine them, is really what the Institute is about.
Awesome. I mean, it's great. I mean, and thank you for mentioning the books, because I'm going to say it now, we're going to have you back on the podcast to talk about the books kind of a slightly later date. So we'll get to dig into this. It'll be podcast for the Institute for Journey Management Part 2, which should be great. So tell me a little bit more about the founding kind of partners. I mean, are they just some of the technology kind of like players, or are there kind of, what's the kind of the mix?
So mostly journey tech specialists.
Okay.
So in the journey kind of mapping part of journey management, or starting there, you've got folks like Journey Track and Semantica, and they do CX Omni. Then more in the operational orchestration area, you've got CSG, just acquired last week by NEC, Ulterion. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Kitewheel's now another level deeper inside a giant organization. Incuba, Ulterion. We've got Question Pro from the VOC kind of space, and then a couple of consulting partners. So it's not all technology players.
Yeah.
There'll be, in the broader sense, I call it solution providers, because sometimes it's the consulting companies, folks like Optima in Edinburgh, close to you, Alan, and M-Corp here in the States, who are building solutions in the journey space for companies.
And so what are the bigger kind of plans kind of further down, or just like even just near term for like kind of 2026, because this is going to go out 20th of October, not 20th of October, 20th of November, thereabouts. I mean, so people are starting to get to edge towards the end of the year. They're starting to think about, plans for the next year. What sort of things can we expect to kind of like see, or what's on your roadmap for the coming year?
I think it's 2 people and content. So Mark and I have been diligently working on 2,000 pages of really, really strong content. And I think obviously we have different levels of subscribers, that when you subscribe casually, you get very limited content. We advise anybody that goes to the website to see it, but then also see what they can have if they subscribe. But also I think it's kind of like identifying who are the advocates in the space. And we've invited some of those business leaders from Truist, from Lloyd's, to join. They get privileges by joining, because we want influencers to join, to pull in where the mass can learn from these influencers. And so I think that's our focus is on, not so much on, we're transitioning from the vendors into what I call the influencers, but simultaneously we're also starting to look at bringing in more practitioners into the fold, the Deloittes of the world, the Capgeminis of the world that have journey management practices. So I think that's our focus, to broaden that network of people collaborating with each other. We have a founders meeting. We had it every 2 weeks. We just changed that to be once a month. And then we'll have once a month, but, on a monthly schedule, we'll have Mark, you could talk about the business executive meeting, which we'll have our first one next Friday. What's the intent of that? So,
yeah, because that's the other key thing for us is we're building a community, and we actually have built. So if you do go to our website, which is I4JM.org, this actually has built on the
point of note, given that this is an audio recording, it's I4, the numeral, JM.
That's right.
.org.
But that's actually, it's built on a platform called Circle, which is a community platform. So there's a lot of education material there that we've been talking about, but it's also a platform to support interaction and engagement between the members of the communities. And we're supporting that with regular meetings. Next year, there'll be an annual kind of conference that we plan to bring all the members together, but we're starting with more kind of team calls and subgroup calls where people going through the training can kind of work together in little work groups. But the first one there on Friday is for all of those first executive members, and there's about 50 people in that first kind of executive group. And we're going to have a kickoff call with them, get some feedback from them, actually. What are they kind of looking for? What's most important to them as we build this community?
And I should say, in the interest of full disclosure, that you kind of both asked me to be a bit of to a founding member or to become an advocate for yours, because I believe in what you're doing, because I believe in that if it helps customers, because customers don't work in linear kind of like ways, but it helps them achieve the things that they want to achieve in a more efficient, effective, engaging kind of way, then I'm all for it. And so you have my support, which is, and I'm there. I'm looking forward to learning kind of like tons and meeting lots of kind of people and contributing where I can. But if people are listening to this, what would you like them to do?
I would say they have to understand nothing worthwhile comes easy. It is a diligent effort. It is not a one-time effort. It is a continuous way that you have to organize your business to be able to listen to the voice of the customer, move beyond touch points to understand their full expected behavior and experiences over time, and use the concept, practices, technologies associated journey management within the ecosystem to be able to fulfill on the needs and expectations of the customers while building value for the brand.
Sounds good. Mark, anything to add to that?
Yeah, come and join the community.
Simple as you like.
Come join in, make comments, give us feedback. You'll meet a whole bunch of people who are also trying to explore what is this journey management thing and how can it help their business. We'd love to have you as members.
Perfect. So anything else that you'd like to add that we've missed out before I do my quick fire questions?
Thank you, Adrian.
Yeah, no, it's been great.
So here's some quick fire questions. Now, what I like to do, and the first, I've got 3 of them, but what I like to do is ask people to boil things down, almost like give you your best advice. And I've been asking people to do that by completing this sentence, and come to you first, Ray, on this. And the sentence is this: if you would like to improve your customer experience, Ray says, do this.
Understand your customer needs, wants, and expectations holistically instead of looking at micro moments within touch points.
Perfect. Mark, same question to you. How would you complete that sentence?
Do you want to read the sentence to me again?
Oh, okay, fine. Give you some momentum.
And then I'll...
There you go. So if you want to improve your customer experience, Mark says, do this.
Think of journeys as a tool to improve your business.
There you go. Perfect. There's 2 very solid kind of like pieces of advice. And second question is, this is a punk one. Has to be, because it's a Punk CX podcast. What brand do you think is taking a more punk approach to the customer experience, and why? And I'll come straight back to you on that, Mark. because you're screwing up your face, and I know you haven't got an answer.
Well, okay, I'll go for kind of the obvious one after my last 4 days is there's a beer brand here in Boston
Okay.
called Treehouse.
Okay.
Right. They make the best beer in the world. Absolutely fantastic, kind of cloudy, flavorful IPAs.
Okay.
All right. But you can't buy the beer anywhere. You literally can't buy the beer anywhere. You can buy the beer from them. And that's all because they want to control the quality. And they're not distributing it anywhere. You can't buy it in bars, you can't buy it in supermarkets, you have to buy it from them. Now they're expanding their network, but they make buying it from them a great experience.
Okay.
All right. You can now pick it. They've got a few places where you can go and pick it up, and they kind of almost know that you're coming, and they're ready there with the case, and they hand it to you. You buy it all on, they've got a great app. When you go to their brewery to buy it, they've got all these wonderful outdoor chairs to sit around, and you can kind of sample a beer. Great experience. And then the final little magical thing is they bought a golf course. And so you can go and play 9 holes of golf. Each hole is named after one of their beers. And then they've converted the clubhouse into this amazing bar with like 50 taps of all these different beers that you can sample. So I think they're kind of pretty punk.
Doesn't they have a beer thing on each?
There's a giant beer can on each tee box.
Blimey.
How many people finish 9 holes?
Yeah.
I tell you what, that's not kind of a recipe for improving your average kind of golf score.
Exactly.
But it sounds like a lot of fun. Ray, same question to you. What brand do you think?
I mean, obviously, I think I have two. The one is not known at all. A company called EnBW in Germany, a utilities provider with 20 million customers. Amazing experience. While we were at Thunder 8, we sold to them. It was interesting. We never met with one person. We met with a team. And I think that's, for me, one of the key things. There's no individual hero to deliver customer experience holistically. It's the team. And I think we can never forget about the experiences we get on a day-to-day basis from Amazon and Apple. I mean, just remember, Amazon was started in the garage. You might be in the garage today, so it's never too early to start focusing on customer experience.
Awesome. That's great examples. And the final question, because I think my observation is that we live in a weird world right now, and there's a lot of doom scrolling that goes on. And so I've been asking people to share with me a good news story so we can finish on a positive note. So, Ray, I'll come to you first and ask you to tell me something, a story that you've seen or you've experienced in the last kind of week that's just, you thought that's positive, that's exciting, or it's just made you smile.
Well, I'm not sure it's a positive. Well, it's positive. I'm alive. I had a heart attack 7 weeks ago, and I'm very fortunate to still be around, to enjoy my life, my friends, my co-founder, see my family, play golf, and just trying to maximize, and try and see if my journey can take a different turn based on the experience I had, and just thankful to be breathing. So,
well,
I'm not sure if they're good or bad, but I think it's good.
I'm going to take that as great.
Yeah.
I mean, what wonderful news.
Yeah.
That was my good news story too.
Well, there you go. It's like, we both got the same good news story.
My good news story is I got to know Mark Smith as a person versus a competitor.
Well, I mean, I think that's probably enough. We probably should just leave it kind of there, because like Ray kind of like having a heart attack kind of at the time of recording, 7 weeks before the time of recording, and is now in working way back to full kind of like fitness is great news in my book. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Just to add to that, I can tell you, Adrian and Mark, we can never underestimate the value of friends. That's just the good thing. I tell you what, during that period of time, the outreach from friends and people was amazing. And it just makes you happy to be alive, that you know that there's people that think about you, appreciate you, and support you. So
perfect. That's great. Great point to finish on. And I just want to say, so first of all, thank you, Mark and Ray, for the work you're doing at the Institute for Journey Management. I think it's much kind of needed. You have my support, but thank you for kind of doing it. Thank you for inviting me into the kind of the fold to try and help in whichever way I can. Thank you for sharing your time and your experience, your insight with me today. That's been great. So thank you all round.
Well, thank you, Adrian. Thanks for having us on. It's been a great conversation.
Wow, what a great interview. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Find out more about me and the work that I do at adrianswinscoe.com. Do leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And if you have any comments, feedback, or questions about the podcast, then feel free to send me a message to podcast@adrianswinscoe.com. And do tune in again. Thanks very much.